Colleen Hoover is a prolific romance and young adult fiction writer who has pumped out nearly 2 books a year since 2012. And as with all successful authors, the next step is obvious: movie adaptations. So far, 3 Colleen Hoover books have made it to the big screen, all to critical and fan acclaim.
All 3 books have over a 4 stars on Goodreads, but struggle to crack even a 3-star on Letterboxd.
Why did the love of the books not translate to the screen? Well, I'm gonna find out by watching all 3 of these movies. Hi, Editing Zach here. It's actually just gonna be 2 movies because I didn't realize that Reminders of Him was still only in theaters. So, hi, I'm Zach and welcome to the Zach Tapes. I usually make a show called Cinema this week, but I sat down to write the script and fell down this Colleen Hoover rabbit hole, so here we are. First up on the chopping block, It Ends With Us. This movie isn't terrible, and there are far worse ways to spend 2 hours. But by no fault of Colleen Hoover, well, it comes with a negative connotation. Because Justin Baldoni is a weirdo, Blake Lively sued him because he allegedly orchestrated a smear campaign against her after she spoke up about some of the sexual misconduct or harassment on the set of It Ends With Us. Allegedly, this is all alleged. Justin Baldoni then countersued Blake Lively, her husband Ryan Reynolds, and the New York Times in response. Blake Lively plays Lily Blossom Bloom, an aptly named florist who currently lives in Boston. One night, Lily meets Ryle Kincaid, a neurosurgeon. And obviously she falls in love with that. The next day, Lily gets the keys to her new flower shop and starts cleaning out. That's when she meets Alyssa, who is it turns out to be Ryle's sister, and Alyssa pretty much offers herself a job. And so because they're becoming friends, Lily, Ryle, Alyssa, and Alyssa's husband Marshall all become friends and hang out as a group. I don't even know, because in the movie, we never see Lily living at her own house. She's just suddenly living with Ryle. She meets him one night, watches him smash stuff on her roof, and is like, I gotta give me a piece of that, and just moves in, and it's never really talked about again. And after Lily and Ryle have been dating for a bit, Lily's mom comes to visit her in Boston, and they all decide to go out to this new restaurant called Root. Root, as it turns out, is owned by Lily's first love, whose name is Atlas. Atlas was a homeless kid that Lily fell in love with when she was a teenager. He's the reason that she has this little root tattoo on her collarbone, and she is the reason that his restaurant is called Root. A few months later, because it's kind of just filler from there, Lily, Ryle, and Alyssa and Marshall all go back to Root, and they have dinner together there because they were like, you liked this restaurant so much, so we'll check it out all together. The day before that dinner, though, this happened.
Oh, God. Wait, you're gonna stick your hand in there? Ah!
And so when Atlas, Lily's first love, comes up to the table to take their order or whatever, he sees Lily's black eye, and he sees that Ryle has a hand wrap, and he's like, this goes very well, as you'd imagine.
Get out of my restaurant!
So, as you might have picked up on, the frittata thing wasn't really an accident, and Ryle is just a piece of shit. Another few months later, and Alyssa and Marshall are having a baby, and Ryle decides that right there in the hospital room is the perfect time to propose to Lily. It doesn't show us the wedding, it just tells us that they're married and that they kind of eloped. And it slowly just gets worse and worse. Ryle gets more and more wound up about the things that Atlas and Lily are doing behind his back, which is nothing, by the way. He just lets his mind go. We just have to see some of the stuff that, the horrible things he does to her. At one point, he's a neurosurgeon, and at one point, he, throws her down the stairs physically, and when she wakes up, he's just gluing her back together, because he can't take her to the emergency room. He knows everybody there, and so it's awful because she's clearly probably concussed. She was thrown down concrete stairs, but he's just like there like gluing her forehead back together, and you're like, so what the but all of this abuse sort of culminates in Ryle R-wording Lily, and she ends up getting out, like running to her car or whatever, and she goes to Root, where Atlas like immediately takes her in and is like, we'll figure this out. He takes her to the hospital where they're pretty sure that her collarbone is broken because Ryle tried to like bite off her tattoo, and they say that usually they'd give x-rays, but given her situation, they don't want to like, they'll just give her a tetanus shot and bandage her up. And she's like, wait, why can't I get an x-ray? And the nurse is like, we don't give x-rays to pregnant women unless it's absolutely necessary. And it's like, but after they go home from the hospital and Atlas takes her home, and he helps her realize that she does want to keep this baby and that she'd be like a great mom. Near the end of the film, Lily goes and talks to Alyssa, Ryle's sister, her best friend, and this might be like the best part of the movie, I think.
Listen to me. As a sister, I wish more than anything that you could find a way to forgive him. But as your best friend, Lily, if you take him back, I will never speak to you again.
And so Lily doesn't take Ryle back. She has the baby and he's there because she delivers at his hospital. But after she gives birth, she lets Ryle hold the baby and she's like, I want a divorce. And they talk and he's like, no, please come home. Like, I promise it'll never happen again. And she's like, what if this baby, because they have a baby girl, what if this baby told you that her boyfriend was hitting her and that she was going to go back to him? And he's like, I wouldn't let her. And so it's like, he understands too. And so after he leaves and she's holding her baby, we get the title drop like 2 hours in.
Stops right here, Bubba, with you and me. It ends with us.
And if Justin Baldoni had a creative bone in his fucking body, that would have been the end. But no, we get like 3 more minutes of filler we didn't need to see instead. It Ends With Us has like a 2-hour-ish runtime, but it still feels very rushed. Like, the passage of time is in no way like in place. Like, they're married, the baby's here, it's 9 months later, they've gotten married, you don't get to see the wedding, she's having a baby now. It's like the time passes so quickly that you're not allowed to like sit and ruminate in anything before another major life event is happening. Slow first act, super fast second act, slow, sluggish third act. And so, despite not having read the book, I can kind of assume that it probably didn't do the book justice. The moral of the story is a good one, right? It Ends With Us is a direct reference to the cycle of abuse. Lily watches her mother experience abuse at the hands of her father. Lily experiences abuse from Ryle, and it will literally end with her daughter. It ends with us. But the general consensus about both book and movie is that they glamorize spousal and sexual abuse. I think about movies and books similar to this, like Room, for example, where Brie Larson shows the dark side of, like, on that whole movie is dark, but you go through the emotions with her. Like, she's not ready to have to raise this child, in that she is also traumatized and working through her own stuff, and how that story was told to shed light on those experiences. Whereas once Lily decides to keep her baby, suddenly she's strong enough to tell her abuser she wants a divorce. She doesn't have any visually lingering trauma. She's just like, fine. Everything is hunky-dory, and she suddenly is just able to raise her daughter and move on. Like, that's not realistic at all. I think that's why this movie has such poor reviews. Like, it just wasn't thought out enough to process the heavy topic that is abuse like this. I also watched Regretting You, which is a slightly lighter topic. So, Regretting You is told from 2 perspectives. So we have Clara and her mom, Morgan. Now, this plot is confusing as hell, so walk with me. Morgan is married to Chris. He is Clara's dad. Morgan has a sister, Jenny, who is in a relationship with a guy named Jonah, and they have a baby together, but they're not married. All four of these adults have known each other since they were in high school. Okay, we've gotten all that laid out. It's time for the actual movie. So the movie starts with Clara giving a ride home to
The coolest guy in school?
his name is Miller, and he wants to go to film school, and he's like the bad boy, and he works at the AMC. She drops him off at his house, and she goes home to her mom's birthday party. And pretty much the only thing you need to remember from the birthday party is that Jonah and Jenny's kid apparently looks just like Clara did when she was a baby. The next day, when Morgan is watching her nephew, she gets a call that her husband Chris has been in a car accident and that she needs to go to the hospital. So once she gets there, Jonah is also there.
Morgan. Is he okay? Is Chris okay?
Chris? What?
I keep trying to call Jenny, but she's not picking up her phone.
Why are you calling Jenny?
What are you talking about? Chris was in a car accident.
Wait, they told me Jenny was in a car accident.
Shit hits the fan, obviously, because Morgan and Jonah realized that not only were they in the car together, they were like together. So both of their partners are now dead, but they decide to keep the fact that they were having an affair from Clara. So she doesn't know about her dad and her aunt. From there, the movie is basically about everyone avoiding their grief and just doing other things. Clara throws herself into a relationship with Miller as a distraction and a way to get back at her mom. Morgan kind of does the same thing in her own way, where she, like, the house they live in was Chris's, like, where he grew up, like his family house, and so she starts renovating it to try and get, like, some of herself back, but she also starts exploring and dating Jonah. Like, I don't know, it's really weird. And that's kind of it. That's like the whole rest of the movie. Instead of building into some other big thing, it kind of just mehs out. At the very end, though, Miller, because he is in film school, or he wants to go to film school, he makes this like big over-the-top thing for Clara to ask her to prom. And this retroactively makes no sense, because there are all these times that they were hanging out and he's like, Clara, will you go to prom with me? And it's like the opening scene where she's driving and she picks him up. He's like, Clara Grant, you just drove past me, and if you come back, I'll ask you to prom. And he's like, oh, you're coming back. It's like, in the space of time that she pulls back, he couldn't have flicked his phone out and recorded that. Like, I don't... Anyway, not the point. I think what I've taken away from watching these movies is that they are wholly underwhelming. You sit down and there's a big shock moment factor, and then it just falls so flat and becomes so boring so quickly. The shock of the abuse or the shock of the car crash is supposed to like carry the emotional weight of the entire film, and that's just like a thing that's not possible. I think these two films are very similar to Emerald Fennell movies. She also utilizes shock factor aspects to move along the story. Saltburn and Wuthering Heights aren't generational films, but we all know about them because of the bathtub scene, or because of the grave scene, or the puppy play, or whatever. But after the shock wears off, we're left with a lackluster story because the end product was just supposed to be jarring and it didn't actually have any substance. So Colleen Hoover has clearly captured the market that is older women who want to read about jarring, sensationalized topics, but don't want to read about the downsides that come along with those same topics. So if she wants to win any awards, I'd recommend her to watch Room, I, Tonya, A Star is Born, where you actually viscerally feel what the character is feeling versus just like la-di-da-di, like, because right now everyone seems to be coming to the same conclusion. Hoover isn't providing commentary on these issues. She's just poorly communicating best case scenarios. I just think she tries so hard to bring these hard topics to a more like palatable. She just tries to make them easier to digest, I guess. And that's just not a good idea, I think. If there are any movies you want me to make videos like this about, let me know. Or if there's any news stories you'd like to see for cinema this week, let me know. I'm Zach, and I'll see you next week. You're probably aware of what happened at the Oscars by now, but on last week's Cinema This Week, I promised that I'd tell you my prediction results for these 12 categories. I got 9 of them wrong. The ones I correctly predicted were Sentimental Value for Best International Feature, Amy Madigan for Best Supporting Actress, and Jessie Buckley for Best Lead Actress. So if you're doing the math, yes, I did get a 25%.